Layering. We're good? Alright, part 3 of our video, we're going to show you how to fill your bait molds with the bait and the Bunker Up Fishing rigs. Alright? So now, you have your Bunker Up Fishing rig, you have to apply the bait to the hook. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your Bunker Up Fishing sinker, you're going to drop it inside the mold. Alright? Just like that. You're going to just tee that off to the side. Alright, now you got your hook out here that needs to be baited. What you're going to do is you're going to grab a piece of bait. We got some bunker here that we got off of Buck's Bait and Tackle down in Ocean City, Maryland. You can also buy the Bunker Up Fishing caster down there. That's our first bait store. Guy's great, and it's right next to where we fish, so it's really good for us. These bunker right here are practically a perfect size. You might have to squeeze them a little bit to get them in the tubes. Sometimes you might have to cut the belly out a little bit. To do that, you're going to need a sharp knife. I like to use a butcher knife, good heavy duty handle, nice sharp knife. Don't use a small knife or a pocket knife, you're just going to cut yourself and then you're not going to be able to go fishing. So, nice big knife, nice sharp knife. What I like to do first is if it's a little too wide like that, just kind of cut down. I'll move this to the side so you can see. Just kind of cut down the belly of the bunker like that. Alright, and you get to the bottom, just cut right through his face. Now what this is going to do, this is going to open him up a little bit. He's going to bleed out when he gets into the ocean. Create a nice little chum slick. We like to fish for sharks, so it's ideal bait for us. And now it's going to fit right in the tube. The key to putting them in the tube is you're always going to want to put it in head first. Don't be a fool and try to stick it in backwards. That's drag, negative. Go with the flow, go with the head. Okay? So we find his eyeball, we got a nice little hook here, we put it through his eyeball and back up through, don't put it right through the other eyeball, that's the easy way out. That's just simple connection and it has a tendency to want to come out. Go through the eyeball and back up through the top of the brain, the skull. Just like that, so you got a nice solid connection. Now, you have this great 10-ounce sinker, this whole big piece of bunker going out there at 300 yards. You cannot beat that. You're getting it out there in 6 seconds. Drop this back down in here, make sure that's teed off. What you're going to do is you're going to tuck this around, make a loop. Grab your bait in one hand, grab the line in the other hand. Without pulling the sinker off the bottom, you want to just kind of tuck that. We'll move this to the center a little bit. Tuck that inside here. Push that wire down. And then take your fish and put it down in there like that. Just like that. Now remember, whatever you jam in there is going to come out of there. Alright, so don't worry if you get a little mush coming out the top. That's not going to hurt anything. Alright. Just make sure your swivel's up at the top. Now what we like to do, and we found out is a great trick, is before you put it in there, you want to cut the tail off, because when you stuff this down inside here now, when you make that connection, you go to fire this thing, the tail's going to create some drag in the air and it might make your bait wobble. So we like to get rid of that. We want to keep it nice and flat in the back, so when that air pushes out the back of that, or your barrel on the bait, it's not going to throw it one way or the other, and the tail has a tendency to want to make it wobble like this as it goes out. So what I like to do is just cut this off, okay? Now you can cut this off before you put it in, which I should have done, but I forgot. So now we got this little nub of tail. We used to throw this out. Not anymore. We can eliminate this skewer that we use to hold the bait in the center. Now all we do is push that wire to the side, take the tail in. Now we're going to utilize it going in backwards. Because we're going to stuff that tail down in there so the chunk is at the top. And what that chunk's going to do, it's going to wedge that swivel in. Push that down, and it's going to keep that swivel to the center. Now what you're going to do is just put your skewer on there, and that's going to hold that thing above the top. Or now your draw point on your line is right in the center of the mold, and that's where you want it. You don't want it off the side, because if it's off the side, it's going to pull from the side of the mold, and as it goes out the barrel, it's going to wobble or spin around. When that's pulling off the center, you got center mash. You got your weight in the center, your Bunker Up Fishing rig has the weight in the tip of the mold, and when you pull it out, it's going to be weight forward, and that connection, if it's pulling from the center, is going to allow your bait to go straight. So the more you keep that to the center, the better shots you're going to have, the more consistent shots you're going to have. So always try to keep that to the center. We're going to repeat this process now with a different bait. We're going to go, we caught some kingfish. Now these babies are ideal. You can catch these off the surf. We like to spend some time trying to catch bait while we're waiting for our big fish to hit our big rig. So these little kingfish work perfectly. I mean, they're almost like they were custom made for our tube. You don't have to trim anything off. You might want to trim the tail off if they're a little long, so you can do that right off the bat. Like I said, just cut that like that. Drop your sinker down inside the next pole, spin it around. You want to drop this sinker down inside. Take your skewer, dropped it, put it on the top, take your hook, like I said again, you come through the eyeball. Now on these, you don't have to go right through the eyeball because there's not a lot of meat right there. So you can go right through the bottom lip and then come up through the brain. Gotta push a little hard sometimes. Once it's in there, it's not coming out. That's a nice solid connection. Like I said, look at the bait you have now. You have a 10-ounce weight with this whole chunk of bait for stripers, for red drum, for sharks, for bluefish. I mean, you name it. This is a great quality rig connection with the stainless leader, so you don't have to worry about toothy critters biting your line off. I mean, just a great way to get your bait out there intact. That's the key to this system. When you're shooting this, it's getting your bait and weight out there in one shot. You're no longer trying to have to throw it out as hard as you can to try to throw it. You know, you're trying to get it past the sandbar, so you're trying to whip it, and when you're trying to whip it, you got weight and bait, and they're going like this through the air, you know, so you get all that drag. You're not getting that with our system. Everything's going out, and it's going to look like this. Now, this is just a piece of it's a simulated piece of plastic that I made to simulate what the bait looks like inside the mold. But this is how it goes out, so everything's intact. And when that hits the water, it thaws out in a matter of seconds, like 20 to 30 seconds. And what happens is, on the way down, it's melting, so the sinker's falling off and it's falling away from the bait. And as you're dragging your slack up, it's just going like this, so you get no knots in your line. We rarely get a knot in our line. I mean, the only time we get knots in our line is if a shark is spinning around in circles and somehow spins through the line again, but that's a rarity. Like I said, most of the time our rigs come back exactly like this. So what you do is drop that down, boom, make your little loop, put that inside there. Now watch how nice they go down. They just whoop in there. Like I said, you take the tail now and you stuff this in backwards. Use the chunk to keep that line to the center. And that acts as a binder inside the mold also for the water. You can grind up. You take a couple of these fish, you can grind them up, chop them up, put them in a blender, blend them up, dump that in, use that fiber, that blended fiber of fish guts and scales is a great way to keep your baits frozen longer too, because it takes longer for that to melt than just regular water. So we're going to show you the next rig, which is a double hook rig. And we also sell these on our website. Just a little complicated. You have to hook another hook onto the line, but this is good for stripers, where you can hook two little fish on. And these are little spots. You can see they got a little spot on them. That's what I call them, spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook this through the head like that, and then we hook the other one through the head. Coming back up through the brain, so you don't have to worry about it coming out. Now look what you got going out there. Nice double rig, 2 hooks. Striper sees that, he's not giving that up. That's red drum, love little baits like this. Sharks, I mean, you name it, it would hit this. We'll tuck that in like that. Get another skewer, put it off to the side. Like I said, you make a little tuck. Now you just tuck your baits down in there, boom, push them down one right after the other. Look how nice that goes in there. Perfect. Slide it to the center. Always making sure your swivel is relatively close to the center and sticking up near like that. We're going to cut up some more bunker now to finish up these other three. But as you can see, it's very simple. There's three different types of baits I use. I use the bunker, which was big, so if you get a big bunker, you got to cut it. It's no problem. Just cut the belly out a little bit. If you get the kingfish or something similar to that size, you don't have to worry about that. You just slide that thing right in the tube because it fits perfect. The little baits, you want to put two baits on, it's no problem. Just add another hook, put it on there. Any kind of fishing you're going to do, just adapt that rig to this sinker. You want to fish for flounder. Now fishing for flounder, you're going to be way out there. They got a little soft lip. It's going to be hard to reel them in that far. So, you know, it might not necessarily work very well for them, but you can put those rigs in these molds. And you could also put top water plugs in molds, like this simulated bait I made. It shows how you can put a top water plug in there. Now you could put a fall off weight inside there so when it goes out it falls off and then your plug floats to the top, but I don't like polluting the ocean with lead. That's just senseless. So, you know, if you just stick a top water plug in here and freeze it, you can pull these out if you see fish jumping, launch it out there, and within a couple seconds it's going to be floating on the top, but you're only going to get maybe 150 yards out of this because it doesn't have the sinker in it. So keep that in mind. You can make a 6-pack of those, just keep them in your cooler in case you see some fish breaking, some big ones you want to get a top water plug out there, you can zip it out there real fast. But we have lots of luck with the baits, the cut baits on the bottom, so you know, we'll bring a 6-pack of those just in case, but most of the time we're fishing on the bottom with the bunker, and you know, that's our favorite bait. Like I said, here's another one. Okay, you can squeeze them a little bit like this. You don't necessarily have to cut them. If you can squeeze it and get it in the tube, you don't have to cut it. But I do recommend cutting the tail off because that allows you to keep it in the center. Say you don't have any skewers. Say, oh, like right now, oh, where's my skewers? I don't have any. I can take this skewer out because it's still on the top there because that bait's wedged in. I can take this hook now, put it through the circle hooks are sharp. Put it through there. Okay. Do your tuck. Tuck the line down in. Squeeze that sucker a little bit to make it a little more round so we easily accept it into the tube. Push that down to the bottom. Slide it over. Tuck your tail in backwards. See that wedge, that wedge part right there now is going to keep that line up against the other piece of bait that's in your tube and keep that swivel to the center. That's key. I mean, for the longest time we were having problems, you know, keeping that in the center, and sometimes the line would come out to the side, and then one day I was just, you know, I said, man, I think the tails are making our baits wobble, so I kept cutting the tails off and I'm throwing them out. I'm thinking, wow, I flip this around and tuck it back in there so you got no waste. Okay, that's the key. You're not throwing things away. Utilize everything. Anything you cut off of here, take this, put this in a blender, throw it in there, blend it up, put a little water in there, and then use that. That creates a chum slick. That just adds to the chances of a fish, you know, getting a whiff of your slick and coming in the area and hitting your bait. So this system is just built for that. I mean, it's built for big baits, you know, big fish, getting your bait out there fast, and you know, the fact that you can utilize the chum is just another added feature to this. So, okay, let's get 2 more to go, and then we'll just show you how to fill them up, and we should be good to go. Now, again, you're gonna, you know, we got some big bunkers. Look at, I mean, sometimes this is all they have. So you know, you want to use, we love bunkers, so it doesn't really matter to me if they're bigger. I just cut the bellies out a little bit. So we'll take this fish. Run it right on, real slimy. Don't try to hold it up in the air if it's slimy and cut it right through your finger. So just take it on the table, make a nice little slice right up here. A lot of times you got to cut right through the face, okay, to get that. There you go, just like that. Now look at all that goodness in there. That's going to come out in the ocean. Them sharks can be all over that. All right, cut the tail off. That's it. Get yourself another Bunker Up Fishing rig. Drop it down in there. I'll just take this, cheat that one out for now. Okay. Gotta love the smell of that. I got a problem. I love bait. Alright, there you go. Put it through there. Look at that. Just dripping all kinds of goodness. That hits the ocean. It's like game on the sharks. Okay, tuck it in here. Same procedure. Drop it down. Nice and easy with the head going forward. Slide that to the center. Stick your tail. Tuck that back down with the fork going down. Push it in there. Keeps that swivel right to the center real nice. So when you're filling up, you don't have a problem. As you can see, it doesn't take very long. You can make 6 baits in a matter of minutes. I mean, I'm walking through this, so I want to make sure you know all the ins and outs about it. But you know, you can put one of these together in 10 minutes and be done. And you got 6 nice baits to go to the beach. We don't check our baits for at least an hour. I mean, you leave your bait out there for an hour, you got a big piece of bait on there. Now you don't have to keep checking it all the time. You got to go back to, oh, is my bait still on? Back to the truck. And 9 out of 10 times it's not. 9 out of 10 times if we pull our bait in a half hour later, we got a piece of bait on it. And that's what's great about our system. It eliminates all that thought process of, was my bait still on? Did I throw it off on the way out there? That eliminates that because now we know it's going out in a piece of ice, so you know it's getting out there. If you want to zip into the same spot, time after time, you just point it. The same amount of pressure with the same amount of weight, you're going to be able to plop that bait right in the same spot all the time. You cannot do that throwing it off the beach. There's just no way. I mean, I used to be a good caster. First I could throw is 100 yards with a weight and a bait, and we're going 300 yards. So, you know, it's a win-win. The fact that you can put all this bait and this weight in this little tube and blast it out there in a matter of seconds, it just eliminates a lot of aggravation and thought of, the things that really, slow down your fishing and the chances of you catching a fish. So we like to increase our odds, and that's what this system does. Okay, we got one more rig left. Don't worry about getting blood all over. That's good stuff. Take that and throw it down in there to the side. One more bunker here. Like I said, if you got a couple of these pieces left over, you got a little room in the tube. Look, we got some room in that tube with the 2 little spots. We could throw that in there. Don't waste the bait. I don't like to waste anything. We utilize everything at Bunker Up. Keep the beach clean and don't waste bait. That's my motto. Okay? Tuck that in there. Look at it. Everything's utilized. Now when that falls off and that goes in the ocean, that's just going to dissipate, create a little chum slick, nice little piece of bloody fish floating around. Just going to attract that fish closer to your bait. So, don't waste it. Alright, now we're going to cut this guy down here. One more out here. And remember, sharp knife is the key to it all. Don't use a dull knife. You're just going to cut yourself. I mean, that means you got to push harder. Something's dull, you're going to push harder, you're going to wind up cutting yourself, and you're not going to know if that's your blood or the bait's blood. So, cut the tail off. Alright, now again, we got a nice open wound there with that bunker, and that thing's going to bleed right out. And create a nice slick, like I said, put it in the head. I mean, I like these big baits because then I cut them and I know they're going to be bloody when they're out there. We seem to get more hits on these when we cut them, so, I mean, everybody has their preference, but, I like to increase my odds, and if that's increasing my odds, I like to cut them. But, like you said, sometimes you get the small bunker, you don't have to cut them, just put them in the tube, they work just as well, depending on how many fish are out there. But if you got to draw the fish in, there's not a lot of fish around, it pays to have a little open wound. So we'll tuck that in again. Alright, now we're good to go. I dropped a couple of skewers down here. I'm going to try to pick them up. I'll just get this one here. Okay. Alright. Now get all your swivels to the center. Once you have all your swivels to the center, you're going to take your water and you're going to fill these up. Now the key to filling these up is you want it filled up 1 inch away from the top to allow for expansion for the ice. Because what happens is, the inside of this mold is specifically designed to fit down the barrel with the 90-pound leader. If you let that overflow and mushroom out, you're not going to be able to get it down the barrel. You'd have to chisel it off, and when you're chiseling it, you tend to crack the back, and it eliminates the flat surface on the back, so you might get a little wobble in your mold. You don't want to do that. Leave the water down there 1 inch, so when it expands, it'll come up nice and flat. So when you pull it out, that air is pushing on the back of a flat piece of bait, and it's going to give you greater distance and more consistency in your shots. So here we go. Just dump. Like I said, you can mix this up with chum, and sometimes when you're dumping this water in, your bait's so tight there because you put a big bait in there, sometimes you got to jam it in there. It holds the water back. So watch for the bubbles. If you see bubbles coming up, you're going to want to wait a little bit and then pour a little more water in. What you don't want is air pockets in your mold, okay? Because that's going to create a problem when you go to fire. There you go. That one has a little bit of air pocket in there. The bait was pretty tight. You can hear the air coming out. Doesn't take much water to fill them up because they're basically all bait. That's the key. There's not a lot of water in here. The water is just used as a binder to keep everything together for a couple seconds till it gets out there. You know, on a hot sunny day, this thing's melting as it's going out in the sky. It's hitting all that hot air, it's already melting. By the time that thing hits the water, it's almost separated. So your weight's going down, your bait's separate, you're fishing in a matter of seconds. You know, a lot of people say, oh, it's frozen, how long does it take? The ocean is a constant temperature. It's not like throwing this in a bucket of water, okay? If you throw this in a bucket of water, it's going to make the water colder because this is a small amount of water. The ocean's constant and huge. When you throw an ice cube in the ocean, it doesn't make the ocean colder, okay? The ocean eats up the ice, and that's what allows it to be broken down so fast and allows you to fish within a matter of seconds. So, we're going to save these bunker for another trip. But we've got our 6-pack. Now all we got to do is stand it up in the freezer. The bait molds have the clips on the bottom, or the little feet on the bottom that allows it to stay stable in the freezer, so you don't have to worry about it turning over and dumping everything out. It's got a nice little 3-prong clip here. You grab it with your fingers, you pick it out just like a little 6-shooter revolver clip. Freeze that overnight. You probably can freeze them in 5 or 6 hours if you have a great freezer, but I recommend freezing them overnight. And going out, when you go out the next day, you stack them in your cooler like logs. I explained that in the instructional video on our website on how to stack the bait in the cooler. But I had a lot of questions with people wanting to know how specifically we put the bait in the molds, and I want to make sure they get the most quality out of their shots. And there's a couple little things I wanted to go over, and I think we touched on them enough to get you going down the right direction. Like I said, it's your bait mold. You can do whatever you want. You can put whatever you want in there. We just get you the sinker and get you the equipment to get you out there. So whatever you're fishing for, put it in there, and chances are, it's going to work out for you. Like I said, the only thing you might have to worry about is if you're going to fish for flounder, they got a little lip, and it's hard to, they're always falling off the line. But other than that, this thing works great, and see you on the beach.